ಕೋರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ.
Development oriented, action oriented issue is not there.
The guarantee of what was promised is not been delivered. It has been completely compromised.
Our top focus, Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah took centre stage as he unveiled the first state budget of the current Congress government in the state. The Chief Minister announced that Rs 52,000 crore has been earmarked to fulfill the hotly debated 5 poll promises, which will benefit over 1 crore families. In a scathing critique of the national education policy, Siddaramaiah contended that it undermined democracy and the constitution. Promising a transformative change, the Chief Minister pledged to replace the NEP with a state education policy, carving a distinct path for Karnataka's educational landscape. Furthermore, he championed the cause of linguistic inclusivity by vowing to introduce English classes in all government higher education institutions, equipping the youth with a global outlook. Now, amidst the clamour of promises, the Chief Minister extended his protective embrace over the popular milk brand Nandini, assuring its continued prosperity. Additionally, Siddaramaiah boldly affirmed that the scourge of moral policing would not be tolerated, promising swift and stringent actions against those who sought to suppress personal freedoms. The budget was presented even as the BJP remained in disarray, yet to unveil the leader of opposition.
ಸನ್ಮಾನ್ಯ ಸಭಾಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರೇ, ಈ ಆಯವ್ಯಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಘೋಷಿಸಲಾದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಯೋಜನೆಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನು ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ಜಾರಿಗೆ ತರಲು ನಾನು ಶತಸಿದ್ಧನಾಗಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಈ ಸದನದ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಸದಸ್ಯರ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಸಹಕಾರವನ್ನು ಕೋರುತ್ತೇನೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಸಹಕಾರದಿಂದ ಗುರಿ ಮುಟ್ಟುವ ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ ಇದೆ.
Sir, we are seeing that a 20% excise duty has been increased. It's a huge hit to the people, sir, of the state. Is it because, 52,000 crores is being spent on the guarantees that the state has to make up the money somewhere?
नहीं, वो शराब से नहीं आएंगे. हर साल हम बढ़ाते हैं 10%. Every year we increase 10%. There is no special.
So there's been a 20% increase this year. The opposition says that, this is a way to mint money from the people, sir, because there's no money for the guarantees of the party.
उससे नहीं, वो हर साल हम करते हैं, उस पे नया नहीं है.
Okay, sir, one more thing. Mr. Kumaraswamy says that as far as Make it to implementation is concerned, you've said in your budget that all the licenses would be sought, but he says that, it's impossible. We have not been able to do it for so long that, the state is not getting any water. How will you implement it?
नहीं, उनका भी राय लेंगे. JDS, BJP, कांग्रेस सबका है, पार्टी का नहीं है. पूरा कर्नाटक का समस्या है. सब मिलकर हम बात करके हल करेंगे.
Honorable AICC President Mallikarjun Kharge ji had promised immediately after Congress comes back to power, during the first cabinet itself, they are going to fulfill all their promises. But today, Siddaramaiah's intent is pretty clear. They are going to take at least 1 year to fulfill their promises. And secondly, the entire time and energy of Honorable Chief Minister has been spent only to blame the central government and Narendra Modi ji, and also to blame the previous BJP government.
Personally, I am disappointed after reading his budgetary book. In this budget book, there is no extraordinary development-oriented, action-oriented issue is not there.
Neha, my colleague, joins me live on the broadcast to give us more details about how, of course, the state budget has reflected in the state as well. Neha, good evening. As we speak about the Karnataka budget, as you also talk about, of course, the key takeaways from this, how is it being received in the state?
Well, Well, Nivedhana, there are mixed responses to this budget. Yes, while on one hand, people are quite excited for the 5 guarantees that, the Congress party has promised. And on the other hand, of course, on the flip side, you have people suggesting that, it's going to have quite a devastating impact on the economy. 52,000 crores is what has been set aside for the implementation of these guarantees alone. Now, if we talk about, more specific issues, of course, you have the NEP that's been scrapped. There's going to be a state education policy. Again, educationists, have, of course, opined quite differently on this as well. Largely, of course, you also have over here the excise duty that's, been hiked by 20%. You also heard there from the minister that while on an average yearly they used to hike it by 10%, it's a huge hit, of course, to consumers. But again, you of course have people divided on this as well. While on one hand people say that, it's one way for the government to recover the money that they're making, that they're in fact spending rather on the promises. On the other hand, this is of course something that people shouldn't have been taxed with, is what several have opined. So largely, of course, Nivedhana, one thing that's quite certain is that while the budget, of course, has been announced and the opposition has slammed the government over here, for announcing this budget with such a massive expenditure on the guarantees and not as much as on the development of the state, one key project that's been listed in the budget is the Nivedhana project. This is something that we've seen Karnataka and Tamil Nadu sparring over for years together, for decades together, in fact. Whether the Congress government in the state is going to be able to implement that, the mention, of course, in the budget by getting all the clearances from the central government, well, that's something that we'll have to see, because let's remind our viewers that Tamil Nadu has vehemently opposed this project. So we'll really have to wait and see how this pans out. Of course, while the matter right now is with the union government, we'll see how this works out as well. So on the whole, of course, mixed responses coming into the budget from the state of Karnataka.
Right, Neha, thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast and getting us all those details. But for the moment, we leave it at that. But we continue the conversation with our guests who are joining us on the broadcast. Understand Prashanth GS, BJP spokesperson, Bhavya Narsimhamurthy, Congress spokesperson, and BS Arun, senior journalist, join us here. Thank you very much for taking the time out and speaking to us here on Mirror Now. Bhavya, let me come to you first. The BJP has, of course, constantly been blaming the Congress that the budget was only to hit back at the previous government and the centre. We also heard what H.D. Kumaraswamy had to say. He says he's disappointed, says no development issues have been discussed in the budget. How would you like to respond to that?
First of all, it's historic that Mr. Siddaramaiah, this is his 14th budget, and he set a record in Karnataka to have been presented 14 times the state's budget. And every time he has presented the budget totally is based on ideologies of Ambedkar, the inclusive ideologies, Lohia and Basavanna. And after he became the CM, it was mostly Ahinda, Alpasankhyaata, Hindulida Varga, Matu Dalitaru, that is minorities, backward communities and Dalits. So even this time, our budget, starting from our guarantees, for the opposition to say they haven't seen anything extraordinary, our guarantees themselves are extraordinary, very unique across the country, and they have been successful. Shakti Yojana has been a super hit, and now that the other 3 guarantees, which will be floating very soon, our guarantees themselves are extraordinary. And then coming to other things in our budget, every time Mr. Siddaramaiah prepares a budget, he always has a manifesto next to it while preparing the budget, our manifesto. And that's exactly why during his previous administration, he has completed 98% of the promises he fulfilled. And this time also, in the next 5 years, every promise that we have given will be fulfilled. And this budget is the best example for that.
Right. Bhavya, of course, as you make those opening remarks, let me take that point across to Prashanth. Prashanth, how do you view the budget? Before, of course, we go into further details about what else the state budget has.
See, Nivedhana, first thing on record is this budget probably is against the federal structure. Because if you look at the budget speech, he is only gone on to criticize the central government. And more particularly, he's been making personal attacks. In fact, if you read his budget speech, I've also gone through it in detail. If you read para 31, he makes a specific personal comment on the finance minister of the country, saying that though she's elected from this state, nothing has happened here. These sort of comments are not expected from somebody who according to Bhavya is a great economist in presenting 14 budget. Presenting 14 budget is not great, but having the poise required to present it is required. And here what is he doing? Personal targets of a union finance minister, forgetting that in a federal structure, the union finance minister would stand above him in terms of standing, and he was supposed to be probably magnanimous enough in saying that, look, we will present a pro-people budget. Instead, he has resorted to personal attacks on the Prime Minister, on the central schemes, and more so on the Finance Minister. This against the federal structure itself, what Siddaramaiah is trying to do. He's trying to divide the people between state versus country and saying, look, we are better off. No, in fact, it has the other way around. We have to work for the overall development of the country. And Karnataka will be at the forefront of development of the country because we know how much development happened in Karnataka during the previous tenure also, because FDI is increased and we have a lot of other records to bring out. But this budget is more like a minority appeasement booklet, nothing else, because he is only looking at his vote bank, and vote bank politics are deciding what Siddaramaiah does. It is not, though their manifesto may say 1,000 things, but it is the vote bank politics of Congress which has come out. And two things that Congress is always known for, two sides of a Congress coin, appeasement and corruption. Already you have the cash for transfer scam going on, and the appeasement is happening through this budget announcements only for minorities. This is not on. And of course, the guarantees, which is costing about 52,000 or 55,000 crores, we have already seen how botched up the implementation is. So therefore, wait for 6 months or 8 months, you will understand what's happening, because you have the DCM who's accused of corruption and disproportionate wealth. He's guiding the CM in
Prashanth, I'll have to interject today. I'm going to come back and get more viewpoints from you, but let me get a word in from BS Arun as well. Arun, you've of course seen budgets presented earlier as well. What according to you is the takeaway? Bhavya, I'm just going to come back to you. Let me get a word in from BS Arun. Arun, as we talk about this budget, what is the key takeaway according to you? Was it the poll promises? Was it about hitting back at the previous government, or development in your opinion?
Well, over the last many weeks, ever since the results came in, the focus had been on the guarantees, its implementation, number one, and number two, how the government is going to make good the money that's earmarked for this. So Siddaramaiah has answered a couple of those questions in this budget, and he has put the total cost of this at 52,000 crore. But what is good thing about this budget is minimum burden on the people. So to mop up the resources, he has imposed a 20% tax on the excise. So common man is not going to be affected. Only those who drink are going to be affected. So to that extent, I think the burden has been minimum. That's one feature of this budget. And secondly, a large portion of this, as a BJP friend has said, has been sort of left for the blaming the central government for many of the ills. While many of them are perhaps true, I think the budget should have focused more on what's going to be done than on blaming somebody. But then the 5 guarantees that are going to be implemented is the highlight of this budget, and also implementation of several of the schemes that Congress had promised, as well as the implementation of its policy, like Ahinda, like the scrapping of NEP, and a couple of other issues, which have been presented in this budget, which have been shown in this budget, are the highlights of this. And also for Bangalore, the brand Bangalore that the CM has mentioned, several projects have been given for the city of Bangalore to ensure that it would be one of the top class cities in the world. So I think this is also going to be one of the highlights. One more thing that I want to mention is that when the farm laws came, although the central government withdrew it, it was the government of Karnataka, then run by BJP, which implemented it in Karnataka, and the state government, as per its manifesto promise, it has said that the budget has said that it will be, this APMC Act will be scrapped because it is not pro farmers. So these are some of the features, and as well as the moral policing issues. I think these are some of the issues which many of them are inclusive in nature, or the features of this budget.
Right. As we talk about features, a point that I would want to take across to Bhavya. Bhavya, about the state education policy, is it easier said than done? And how will it be different from the NEP, if you could tell us?
One thing is, why we did not want to support NEP was that it was against the federal structure. It's against the diversity of this country. And even the teacher-student ratio, which was totally impossible. And, you know, the availability of teachers, their training. This NEP, the National Education Policy brought about by central government, is a disaster. And that won't succeed in Karnataka. India is a diverse country, and you cannot have a uniform education system across. We need to understand that. And our state education policy will be holistic, inclusive, and specific to my state, where it is important to show our diversity, our rich cultural heritage. That's one thing. And I would like to respond to the BJP spokesperson when he spoke about, you know, our chief minister personally attacking the finance minister. Basically, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman is being elected from Karnataka to Rajya Sabha. He needs to remember that. And the context in which the chief minister said this was special grants of 5,000 and odd crores were allocated to Karnataka in the 15th Finance Commission, and Nirmala Sitharaman denied approving that. And this is totally not right. Why is this kind of treatment towards Karnataka all the time? And the GST compensation, they're not from, for the past mostly a year, they haven't given us the GST compensation. Isn't it the responsibility of finance minister? And why would this become a personal attack? Isn't the chief minister responsible? And isn't he supposed to give an account to the people of Karnataka? And this is the right time to do that. Budget session is the time when we have to tell the citizens how the central government is treating us, so that in future they are careful and they don't treat us like this. Because even when it came to Annabhagya scheme, they denied the rice after giving an approval from FCI. The government came and passed an order not to give us the rice. And it was not even for free. We were ready to pay for it. All they wanted to do was like try to, you know, sabotage our guarantees. But still, we are very determined. All 5 guarantees we will be implementing no matter what. This is the message we wanted to give, and that is one of the reasons we had to mention. And one more thing, there is nothing wrong in mentioning what the previous government did. They were a failure. It's a fact, and the whole Karnataka knows about it. And we had to reiterate that in our budget session to show the people the difference between their administration and our administration. And why should BJP take it personally? If they don't have anything against, you know, what was presented today, a holistic budget, it's not like they will just blame the chief minister of personally attacking the finance minister of the center. Come on, that was not what he did. He told the fact that she denied 5,000.
Right, Bhavya, I'd have to interject you there. Going back to the point that we were discussing about the SAP. Prashanth, I'll come to you.
Let me respond to
Prashanth,
that.
I will come back to you. I just want to draw attention about the education policy. I would want BS Arun to come in on this. Arun, in your opinion, can a state have its own education policy when the fact that, or do you think, will it be a fresh flashpoint? Or, in other terms, will Karnataka be setting the trend for states to have their own education policy? What is your viewpoint about it?
I think this is the first time in the country that this is happening. Number one, it was Bommai government which implemented this national education policy in Karnataka, and he was saying that Karnataka was the first state to implement the national education policy. Now the Congress government has said that it will scrap the NEP and will have its own state-oriented policy. Well, now the thing is, the state government has so far not made it clear as to what are the differences between the policy that they are going to adopt and what are those, which are against the state, against the people of the state, which the NEP has had. So I think there needs to be sort of a demarcation or making out clear about the differences between the two, and then come to the implementation part of it. I don't think it's it would be against the interest of the state to have state's own policy, because the government might look at what is required for the people of the state. You can take many of the issues which in education which are which are designed in a way that the entire country has to have, where the interests of the states or the essential points that this state has are being neglected or ignored, or it is not taken into account. I think in such respects, a state having its own education policy becomes important. But for me, what I want to know from the state government is that what is that, what are the points, highlights of this policy which it's going to implement. I think it's a bounden duty of the state to immediately come clear on this.
Right. Let me take that point across to Prashanth. Prashanth, how would BJP tackle this? What if other states come up with similar demands? What is your take on that?
Nivedhana, first let me respond to Bhavya's statement about GST. Probably she has to brush up her knowledge about Finance Commission, the 15th Finance Commission, how it works. When it started, 1952, when the Finance Commission was introduced when Mr. B.R. Ambedkar was there, whom Congress only uses for vote bank politics. Because the same Jawaharlal Nehru ensured that Ambedkar loses elections. So Congress only uses Ambedkar for elections. Finance Commission was set up by him. And during the Congress regime, the devolution of taxes was 32% to the states. Now it is 41%. So on that count also, the central government for the past 9 years has increased the devolution of taxes to all state governments. And coming to the Karnataka share, there is at no point in time the center has backtracked on any promise. In fact, in the last budget also, 5,300 crores was specifically given by the center for the Upper Bhadra project, which the Congress fails to acknowledge. And insofar as GST dues are concerned, to the extent that all the states have presented their statement of account to the center has cleared it. So Congress is in the habit of indulging in blatant lies in blaming the center, and insofar as the guarantees are concerned,
they have not paid us the GST compensation since July 2022, and this is a fact. You can't just deny this.
Let me complete. Bhavya, no. Wait, let me complete. Your Annabhagya, what was your promise? 10 kg of rice, which means 5 kg the center is already giving in the Food Security Act. You were supposed to give 10 kg over and above the state government. You have not done that. Instead, you're trying to blame the center, saying that Siddaramaiah and D.K. Shivkumar make bold promises and you want Narendra Modi to implement it. Why? This is not how a federal structure works. And coming back to the state education policy or the national education policy, the intent of Siddaramaiah government is very clear. They want to polarize the education system. They want to have
Prashanth and Bhavya, I have to interject you there for the moment. That's all we have the time for, to be discussing everything related to the Karnataka budget. But want to thank all of you for coming on the show and giving us your viewpoint. But of course, we continue to keep the focus on Karnataka. Now,